Good evening, everybody. Welcome in to Live and Learn. Hope you're doing well on this Monday, January the 6th. The NFL regular season is over. The World Junior Hockey Championships for 2025 is over. And we have a lot to react to today. A lot happened over the course of the weekend. Looking ahead, we got playoffs next weekend in the NFL starting on Saturday afternoon. Wildcard weekend, one of the best weekends on the sports calendar, if you ask me. We got some fun matchups that we will get into. Also going to talk about Black Monday, which is basically head coaches that get fired, head coaches that are gone from their present team. A number of different things happened today in the NFL with head coaches going, including head coaches and coordinators. And there could still be more news with the Dallas Cowboys, always in the middle of things. And then back end of the program, we're going to talk about the World Juniors. With the Americans going back-to-back last night, defeating Finland in overtime in a thrilling game. Great product the last couple weeks. Yes, Canada did not win. Doesn't mean it wasn't a good tournament. Doesn't mean the hockey wasn't any good. If the tournament ends when Canada's out, I say this all the time. I feel sorry for those people because I just like watching good hockey. And I'm a type of, I don't care who's playing. I'll watch a game last night and you went to bed or watch some rerun of some Friends or some shitty show. Sorry. Probably find it on TSN maybe, but watching it live is always better. But this week, podcast tonight, obviously, because we're live. We're doing a podcast on Wednesday, and then none on Thursday. Friday morning, I will be doing a show. We're going to talk NFL playoffs. We'll preview every game. We will make picks, talk about injuries, news and notes. So that is going to come on Friday instead of Thursday night this week. So that's going to be on Friday. So that's the schedule this week for the podcast. We'll also look at betting lines for the Australian Open on Friday. Because the Australian Open starts Saturday, if you can believe it, January the 11th. Andy Murray is coaching Novak Djokovic. Who would have thought that would have ever happened? But it's happening, and it's fun, actually. Two very polarizing, two very interesting athletes. That's to say the least. But let's go to the NFL to start. Prior to last night's Sunday Night Football game between the Lions and the Vikings, if you just watched on paper, the Detroit Lions defense had been horrible for about 4 weeks. They've given up over 300 total yards in every one of those games. They gave up over 400 total yards to a 49ers team without Christian McCaffrey and without Brandon Ayuk and a number of top players. And so I went in going, okay, Sam Darnold playing really good football. The Vikings riding high. The Vikings can go on the road and win this game. But with Aaron Glenn, who clearly wants to be a head coach because he's coaching like it, and Alex Anzalone returning off of injured reserve, getting sack, 7 tackles, which led the team. He also got one of the 3 game balls for the victory. The Detroit defense let the Vikings get into the red zone 5 times, and yet the Vikings only came away with 9 points. 3 field goals and 2 turnover on downs. They had pressure on Darnold the entire night. The D-line worked extremely hard. They had pressure on him. They hit him, made life extremely difficult, and credit to them. because Aaron Glenn and that defense essentially won them the game. You had 2 interceptions for Jared Goff in the game, one inside his own 20, putting them in the red zone. He played okay. Jahmyr Gibbs was phenomenal with 4 total touchdowns. But that defense stepped up. They hadn't played well in a while, and they came to play, and they delivered. And it's funny, because prior to the game, FanDuel had the Lions as not the favorite in the NFC anymore to represent them in the Super Bowl. It was the Philadelphia Eagles. And since last night's result, the Lions now have the best odds to get to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And if you go on FanDuel, you can also see, so I pulled this up here, that it's not just that they believe they're a good team. Super Bowl odds, the Lions have better odds than the Chiefs. Lions at plus 320. They're the favorite to win the Super Bowl again. They have a balanced team. When they are healthy or getting healthier, they are dangerous. Jahmyr Gibbs was a running back taken inside the top 10. That's not something that typically happens. It's typically draft experts say that's the stupidest thing you can do. It was a home run. No David Montgomery. It's okay. We have Jahmyr Gibbs, who's ultra talented and can do anything on the football field. This is the Lions' year. I'm not saying their window is going to shut, but I think it's going to get a hell of a lot more difficult if they don't win this year, and here's why. You're going to have Goff. You're going to have St. Brown back. Laporta under contract. Jahmyr Gibbs still on a rookie contract for a running back. David Montgomery. So you're going to have the pieces up front, and most of the pieces on defense. However, I believe both of their coordinators could be gone this offseason and become head coaches. Ben Johnson is a virtual guarantee that he will be. He could have been a head coach last year. He said no. He didn't like the opportunities. He came back and led the Lions to a great offensive season. They were 1 rushing touchdown away from being the second team in NFL history to have 40 passing touchdowns and 30 rushing touchdowns in the same season. The only other team to do that in NFL history was the 2024 Buffalo Bills. So this year's Bills. So a historic season for Ben Johnson and what he's done. You might lose him. A great offensive mind. It can hurt. The Eagles haven't been the same since Shane Steichen left to go to the Colts. They're a threat again. They're in the playoffs. We'll see how they do. But they haven't been the same offense. They haven't been as threatening. Trying to find new offensive coordinator year after year. Aaron Glenn knows that defense, knows the players, has a connection with them. They know his scheme. Things can change. So that's why I look at the Lions and go, this is your year. This is when it has to happen. There has to be, the win should come now. The win is in reach. And they look really good. It's hard to bet against them because of what they have at their disposal and how much talent they have on that roster. Now for Minnesota, it was uncharacteristic for this season because Sam Darnold was horrible last night. I think he missed 5 touchdowns, 5 passes that should have been touchdowns. He had them. overthrew Justin Jefferson. He had guys open in the second quarter, and he just waited too long to throw the ball, and nothing was there, or he took a sack. He had a bad game, and he picked a bad night to have a bad game. Because Sam Darnold had an excellent season. It was the only game this year where he did not have at least one passing touchdown. He did not throw for 200 yards last night. There could be question marks from people saying, how good really is he? Fair. He'll have an opportunity to prove that against the Los Angeles Rams a week from tonight, the final wildcard weekend game in Los Angeles. It's crazy. The Vikings 14-3, and they have to go on the road to play in Los Angeles. It's the fewest losses of a wildcard team in NFL history. They have the same record as the Eagles. They could be as high as the 2 seed, and yet they're the 5th seed because every division winner gets a home playoff game. Some of the complaints that you got in college football as well, with the likes of Notre Dame getting one, Arizona State, these teams that got a bye for no other reason than playing in a shitty conference and winning it. And there's some truth to that. There's some validity to those complaints. But for the Vikings, I'm not giving up on Sam Darnold. I stand by what I said last week, where I believe he could be in another jersey next year. And that's just because they think really highly of J.J. McCarthy. They took J.J. McCarthy in the first round in the top 10 because they believe he's a good quarterback. He won a national championship at Michigan. He has winning pedigree. Sam Darnold has no winning pedigree in his NFL career prior to this season. So there's a lot of question marks there. A lot to be determined in his career. All that being said, the Vikings still have a two-headed monster at receiver. Aaron Jones left the game but came back. He's healthy. He'll be ready to play next Monday. Their defense came up with 2 turnovers last night. They had at least 1 turnover in every game this season. Incredible statistic. So they have Brian Flores is a good coach. They have all the ingredients to win. They have all the ingredients. Dan Campbell said in his press conference after the game, he told Kevin O'Connell, see you in 2 weeks. Meaning the Vikings would upset the 5 versus 4 and they'd be the lowest seed remaining, meaning it would be Lions-Vikings in the divisional round back in Detroit. Which, yeah, it very well could. It very well could be. That could be the game. Because I haven't seen the line for that yet, and again, I don't like to look until later. The Vikings will be the favorite on the road. Just like I think the Chargers will be the favorite against the Texans on the road. It's going to happen in wildcard weekend. But the Vikings had an uncharacteristic bad game against the Lions, who were my pick to win the Super Bowl before the season started. Against the best team in football, top to bottom. So, if Sam Darnold did this against the Bears, if Sam Darnold did this against the Saints or some bad team, I think there's more validity to it. The Lions they're just a bunch of tough son of a bitches that are going to play hard every night. And Dan Campbell has that team believing, and they are now 2 wins away from the Super Bowl. They were a game away from the Super Bowl last year. They can taste it. They can see it within their grasp. So I'm going to give Darnold a pass for last night's game. Was he bad in the game? Yes, absolutely. But he had one bad game. Josh Allen had a really bad game against the Baltimore Ravens. But it was in September. So nobody remembers that game. But he played horrible. And they lost that game on the road, just like Sam Darnold did last night, and they lost by about 20 points as well. Shit happens. Lamar Jackson had a horrible game against the Steelers earlier this year where he was dreadful. In a season where he had 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Never happened before, NFL history. So it happens to everyone. It's not just, oh, it's Sam Darnold. The Jets cast off. He was horrible in Carolina. It happens to every quarterback. It just happened to him on a big stage in a game that's given more importance than the others because it's the last game of the season, because it's Sunday Night Football and all the stakes that were attached. Vikings had a better record than the Bills. Vikings had a better record than the Ravens in tougher divisions, with Sam Darnold playing every one of those games, including beating the Packers twice, a playoff team. So if he stinks against the Rams a week from tonight, bigger story. More of a conversation. Absolutely. But I'm going to wait until that result to really get into it on what he is and what his season is and what's his future. Because one bad game does not define a career. Was it a bad game last night? Yes. But I'm not giving up on Sam Darnold yet because I think the Vikings are a good team. And they're, like I said, they're going to be the favorite against the Rams. Mark my words. On the fly, let's do it. Let's do this. Look at this line. So, actually, I'm going to say that we're going to do that on the fly. I'm going to guess the lines. Usually that's Bill Simmons' trademark. I'm going to do that on the show, but when I want to talk about the playoff games, and we're going to do that. Okay. But fun game. The Lions won. Good for them. Other storylines before I get to the playoff games. Denver clinches a playoff spot over the Chiefs, who rested everybody. 38-0 win. I see people upset because the Bengals didn't get in. I get it. Ish. Would Joe Burrow against Josh Allen be a lot of fun? Yes, it would. Joe Burrow has went into Buffalo and won a playoff game before. So I think the books would think that the Bengals have a better chance of beating the Broncos. However, I don't think the Broncos have a 0% chance of beating the Bills. I don't think the Broncos have a 0% chance of covering the spread, whatever it might be. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute here. And again, I don't know the spreads. So it's going to be a complete guess. And when you're listening to this, maybe if you don't know the spreads, guess with me. It's fun. Denver has a really good defense. Pat Surtain Jr. III might be the Defensive Player of the Year this year. Nick Bonito had an awesome season on their defense. Vance Joseph, their defensive coordinator, is being requested to interview for head coaching openings. Denver might have got in, and it's Bo Nix, and they only get in because the Chiefs let them. Cincinnati lost to the Patriots in week 1. You don't deserve to be in the playoffs if you lose to the Patriots, period. Patriots suck, and they have for a while. You lose to them, I have no sympathy for you. None. Win that game. For Cincinnati, the lesson is the season starts in September. It doesn't start in November. That's when they started playing football. Joe Burrow had an MVP type season. Jamar Chase had the Triple Crown. Most receptions, most yards, most touchdowns for any receiver. And Trey Hendrickson led the NFL in sacks. They had 3 players play incredible at their position, and yet they miss the playoffs. But Denver is not an easy out. Denver's used to playing in the cold, going up to Buffalo, no big deal. Let it snow, who cares? Bo Nix, first career playoff start. Good defense, Sean Payton. Cortland Sutton starting to find his game. Marvin Mims, 2 touchdowns yesterday against the Chiefs. Baltimore wins the AFC North on Saturday with a win over the Browns and a cover. Thanks, Derrick Henry. Houston's in the 4 spot. We knew that before. Chargers beat Vegas. That means they are the 5th seed. Steelers lose to the Bengals, yet cover. 6th seed, and Denver. Those are your AFC playoff teams. NFC, Philadelphia, 2 seed. They rested guys yesterday, including Saquon Barkley. And they won a game against the Giants with Tanner McGee, but they're the 2 seed. 3-hole Tampa Bay Buccaneers didn't have to win because the Falcons ended up losing to the frisky Carolina Panthers. But Baker Mayfield, 70 rushing yards, a couple touchdowns at 41 touchdown passes on the season, 2nd in the NFL. They win a thrilling game, gutsy performance from Baker per usual. They win, the Rams lose to the Seahawks. And the Rams rested Stafford and a bunch of guys. They didn't care, clearly. Then I'll get the Vikings. Tampa will play the Washington football team, who played Jaden Daniels for a quarter. Marcus Mariota came in. They rallied for a late touchdown with 5 seconds remaining against the Cowboys. So Washington's the 6th seed. And in 7th, Green Bay, who lost to the Bears yesterday. Jordan Love was injured in the game. Christian Watson was injured in the game. He tore his ACL. So brutal, bad day for the Packers. And now they're the 7th seed and they have to go to Philadelphia. Woof. And they're without key players. Tough ordeal. Very tough for the Green Bay Packers. So those are the NFC playoff teams. Obviously, Lions, Kansas City, both teams getting byes until the divisional round. So, Bill Simmons, been a fan for a long time. We're going to do this live. Guess the lines. Let's start in the AFC. Buffalo, Denver. Actually, no, let's do it by the games. The schedule, pardon me. So the first game is on Saturday at 5:30. And 5:30 on Saturday, who's playing. It's always the Houston Texans. Houston Texans own the first playoff game. The 5:30 on Saturday, always playing it. Every playoff game in their history, I saw this on Twitter yesterday, they played at that first game. Houston is at home for Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers. Houston might be the home team, but they don't scare anybody this year. To me, they've gotten worse down the stretch and not better. Yeah, they won their finale, but they beat the Titans, who'll be picking first in the draft, so way to go. I'm going to say Chargers by 3. It's probably 2.5 now that I think about it. But again, I don't doing this on the fly. Chargers -3, FanDuel Sportsbook. It's Chargers -2.5. So I was right in the mix. And that's about right. Chargers should be the favorite, despite the fact that they're on the road. They're the better team. Quentin Johnson coming along. Justin Herbert playing good football. Lad McConkey. Chargers are a dangerous team to me. They have a healthy Joey Bosa come playoff time for the first time in forever. They just have a bunch of guys that compete. 2 really good running backs. Again, they throw the ball down. They can make big plays down the field. I wouldn't want to play the Chargers. If I'm Kansas City, I'm looking up and going, of all the teams we could play divisional weekend, I think the Chargers is the top. And yes, the Chiefs have beat the Chargers twice this year. Close games, however. It's a tough game. It's not an easy out. I'd rather play the Steelers, anybody over them. Second game on Saturday. This one's on Prime. So that'll be Al Michaels, Kirk Herbstreit on the call from Baltimore. Baltimore hosting the Steelers. Third time this year. First game in Baltimore, the Steelers upset them and won the game outright. Steelers haven't won a playoff game since 2016, yet they always make the playoffs. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games. They're in big trouble. Baltimore's coming alive, although Zay Flowers did have a knee sprain. Doesn't sound like he's going to be able to play this weekend. So that's a big loss for the Ravens. Baltimore's at home. They're going to be a sizable favorite, at least a touchdown. At least a touchdown. I'm going to say Baltimore -7.5. Is Baltimore -9.5 at home. Wow. Almost 10 points for the Ravens. It's a bit surprising. I must say, it's a bit surprising. Steelers are not a great team, but it is a divisional game. Things can happen. TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, that defense could come up with a game. They do play Lamar Jackson extremely well. They know how to do it. But I don't trust the Steelers. I don't trust Russell Wilson to have a great game. I think we're destined to see Baltimore play the Bills in the divisional weekend, which will be a lot of fun. I'm a little disappointed the Chargers didn't. I wanted to see the 2 Harbaugh brothers meet up again, but nevertheless not meant to happen. But 9.5 is a lot of points in a postseason game against a divisional rival, but I don't trust the Steelers either. And if you're just joining us, let's just guess the lines. Impromptu. Bills hosting the Broncos, 2 o'clock on Sunday. This is on CBS. I believe this is the Tony Romo game and Jim Nantz, Tracy Wolfson. Buffalo, again, I think it's another big line in this game. I like the Broncos more than I like the Steelers at this point, so I can't say it's going to be 9.5 points. It's going to be better than that. So I'm using the logic of this line to help me pick the next one. So it can't be 9.5 because the Broncos' defense is better. Bo Nix is playing better than Russell Wilson. They just put 38 points on the board, so they can score. The Bills' defense isn't exactly the 72 Dolphins. Bills are getting a touchdown plus at home for sure. I'm going to say Buffalo -8. It's Bills minus 8.5. So right in that window. And I'm okay with that one. And so far of the games, if I'm going to go with an underdog pick, I'm going with the Broncos plus the points. I don't think they're going to win the game, but I think they have a better chance than the Steelers at covering the 9.5 or winning that game, or the Texans, quite frankly, at home. Tough conditions, all that stuff, but again, they're used to playing in the cold. They play in Denver. They're not a dome team going to Buffalo. It's not Miami flying up to Buffalo in early January to play a game. 5:30 game on Sunday. It is Philadelphia and Green Bay. This is an interesting one. Philadelphia, to me, has a loaded roster. Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts hasn't played in a couple weeks, but he should be back for this game. Saquon Barkley a bunch of guys just got rest, so they're going to be healthy going into this game, while the Packers had a number of injuries, including Christian Watson, who's now out for the season with a torn ACL. Green Bay has to run the football effectively. Tough to do on the Eagles. Philly can score. Jair Alexander's also out for the season, their top corner. So can't defend him, A.J. Brown, or Devontae Smith. Philly's a big favorite for sure. I'm going to say Philly minus 7.5. Philly minus 4.5. Interesting. Giving more respect to Green Bay. Should be higher, in my opinion, obviously. Green Bay, when healthy, when everybody's available, good team. I think they've underachieved a little bit this year. The Vikings are better than the Packers. Jordan Love's the highest paid player in the league. I don't think he's played like it for most of the season, quite frankly. And Josh Jacobs is awesome. They have a bunch of guys that are highlight reels. It's not enough. Not enough in my mind. Sunday Night Football. Washington football team in Tampa to play Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. Fun game. Dan Quinn, first year's head coach of the Commanders, gets them to the playoffs. Jaden Daniels, rookie quarterback, in the playoffs. Will be his first career postseason game. Tampa was an underdog in a playoff game last year against the Eagles, and they destroyed them at Raymond James Stadium. Tampa is at home. They're going to be I don't think it's going to be a huge favorite, however, because Jaden Daniels plays well under pressure. He plays well against the blitz. They have guys that can make plays down the field. The tight ends Zach Ertz is starting to catch touchdown passes for the Commanders. I'm going to say Tampa. It's a slight one, 2.5. Tampa minus 3. So I was right in the ballpark. That's about right. Tampa's the favorite. You're going to get 2.5, 3 points all day, every day for being at home and having home field. There's something to that. But again, there's going to be no elements. It's in Tampa Bay in January. It'll be very comfortable. A night game for Washington to go in there and try to get a win. Dan Quinn, first year head coach for the Commanders, but he's been in playoff games. He was in plenty with Atlanta, including getting Atlanta to the Super Bowl. So he's been through some wars. He's done this. And I just think Jaden's so young, so talented. He's not going to care. He's just going to go out there, play the best football that he can possibly play, make some explosive plays, and see what happens. Commanders are very much alive in that game. They could win that game. And final wildcard weekend game, a week from tonight, Los Angeles Rams at SoFi Stadium hosting the Minnesota Vikings. Two good teams. Rams have an explosive offense when they want to. Brian Flores' defense is rabid. They come up with turnovers every game. Literally every game this year, they had at least one turnover. They'll be pissed coming off a loss to Detroit a game they felt they could have had to get the bye to lock up the number one seed. Vikings are on the road, and yet they're going to be the favorite. But by how much? Last night's game might have shook some of the confidence in Vegas of the Vikings and who they are and what they can accomplish. I'm going to say Vikings by 2.5. It's Vikings by 1.5 on the road. So clearly they don't have a whole lot of confidence in the Vikings. Yes, a road favorite, but you see a team that's 14-3 and they're only a 1.5 point favorite in a playoff game. That's surprising. Compared it to the Baltimore, who had 12 wins. Yes, Steelers had 10 and they're favored by almost 10 points. I think wildcard weekend has some really good games. I think Vikings-Rams is a lot of fun. I think that game will be competitive. Commanders-Buccaneers, fun game. I think that game will be competitive. The underdog could outright win it in both these games. Packers-Eagles, I'm not so certain it's going to be that close of a game because of the injuries to the Packers, and I just think the Eagles are better. Eagles, top to bottom, have one of the best rosters in the league, period. However, there will be pressure because I think if the Eagles lose this game, Nick Sirianni very well could be fired after a great year and another division title. Broncos-Bills. On paper, you go Bills are going to crush the Broncos. I'm not so sure about that because I think the Broncos are feisty and their defense can keep them in the game. It's an interesting game. Ravens-Steelers, that could be a blowout, but again, it's a divisional game. Who the hell knows? Chargers-Texans could go every which way but Sunday. It's a solid slate. I love the NFL postseason, but I also hate it at the same time because football is nearing an end. There's no Monday Night Football tonight. That sucks. Sucks. Now, there is a FCS National Championship game between North Dakota State and Montana, which I'll be watching some of. 2 more bowl games this week and then the National Championship. Oh, God. So little left to watch, so little football. But when the playoffs are here, you enjoy them. Simple as that. I plan to. We'll talk about these games throughout the week. We'll talk about them all on Friday. We'll make some picks, talk about injuries, news, and notes. So that's all forthcoming later on in the week. Okay. Other NFL news. Black Monday in the NFL, meaning a lot of coaches are fired today. Not as many as I thought. I will say that. It started yesterday when the New England Patriots fired Gerard Mayo after one season with the Patriots. He was on Bill Belichick's staff for a long time. He won Super Bowls as a player, was the guy kind of handpicked to run the team after Bill Belichick. There was no other real interviews. He was given the job January last year when they decided Bill's not coming back, and yet they fire him after 1 year. A couple things. I feel for him because I don't think he did a great job, but I don't think he was put in a position to succeed either. Some of his coaching decisions were bad, clock management, things like that. I don't think he was a great head coach in his 1 year of being one. But I also look at the Patriots and go, what's the plan? Because if you tell me, well, the plan is to hire Mike Vrabel, they could have did that last offseason. Mike Vrabel was free for everybody. And he didn't get hired, which is stupid. Don't get me, he should have got hired by a number of teams that didn't. Stupidly. That said, we're going to go in a different direction. Because Mike Vrabel is a leader of men, and Mike Vrabel can just flat out coach. He got a shitty Titans team to an AFC championship game. Tough to do. He did it. With lackluster talent and Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. But nobody hired him, including the Patriots, who hired Gerard Mayo, did not give Mike Vrabel an interview. Mike Vrabel, who won multiple Super Bowls with the Patriots. So they hired an alumni instead of going with another alumni. So if the plan this offseason, which I believe their plan is, we're going to hire Mike Vrabel. Okay. So the Patriot way isn't gone. The Patriot way remains. It's like retread of what used to be. And for Vrabel, there's only so many jobs, and I'm sure he'd love the Patriots job. I think he wanted the Ohio State job, but they're not going to fire Ryan Day, I think. After getting to the semifinal, I think they're going to win the national championship now. So that job's not going to be available. But you could have had Vrabel. You chose Mayo. And after 1 year, you go, no, we'd rather have Vrabel. It's just a weird message, and I think it's a bit lazy of the Patriots, and you're kind of showing your stupidity. And clearly they don't mind doing that. But we could have had this guy last year. We didn't. He's still available because nobody else wanted him, so now I guess we'll take him. Are there better jobs for Mike Vrabel? That's the question. Do you spurn the Patriots because they spurned you last time? I consider it. But I actually think it's a pretty solid job with Drake May. We'll talk about the draft picks and positions. That's going to be another story coming up. But Patriots fired Gerard Mayo shortly after they beat the Bills yesterday. Good job by the Bills yesterday. Guys come out healthy, and the Patriots win, so it hurts their draft stock and helps you going into next year. Full marks. Next up, we get to this morning, and to nobody's surprise anywhere, the Jacksonville Jaguars fired Doug Peterson as their head coach. He had 1 year left on his deal. He had lost 18 of his last 23 games as head coach. And this was happening. Shad Khan was going in a different direction. The Jaguars, They gave a lot of money to Trevor Lawrence. And I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is any good. Had a really rough year. Dealt with some injuries. And now you're looking in the mirror going, what do we have here? A guy with really nice hair, good Christian boy, which gotta love that, gotta have it. You gotta have it. It's the only way you can go at the quarterback position, and that's coming from me. No, there's no sarcasm to that. You gotta have a good Christian. Oh, I love that. But you have that, and I love Brian Thomas Jr., their draft pick at wide receiver. The kid's a stud. Etienne, disappointing. Trevor Lawrence, disappointing. Disappointing season. But Doug Peterson was not the problem. I think quarterback was mainly the problem. Just how inconsistent Trevor Lawrence was. Wasn't productive, couldn't make plays, threw bad interceptions in costly moments. And you're that, and I understand having to do it, but you're that bad in a division that sucks. Whew. But other than that, the Jets' job was already open because they fired Saleh earlier in the year. The Saints fired Dennis Allen 8 weeks ago. And the Bears fired Eberflus on Thanksgiving. So only 2 new jobs opened up as of now. The New England Patriots and the Jacksonville Jaguars. There are 5 head coaching openings. Jets, Patriots, Saints, Jaguars, Bears. Out of those options, I do think that I would still probably take the Bears job number 1 because I believe Caleb can figure it out. He did not have a great rookie season. He needs to work on his footwork. He needs to get rid of the ball faster. But he was taken first overall for a reason. And I think Rome Odunze will produce when that offense comes together. They have a lot of pieces, and I talked about it this year. I thought the Bears would be a playoff team, and they were very underwhelming. But I'm not giving up on Caleb after 1 year. So I think the Bears is the most attractive job because I do think at his best, Caleb Williams is better than Drake May. He was better than him in college, and I think he can be better than him in the pros. New England is a clear number 2 and the most attractive jobs because you have a quarterback that's gotten reps that you know can play in Drake May. That roster still leaves a lot to be desired. It's probably still a couple years away from being competitive. However, you play in a division with the Bills who are good and will continue to be good. But the Dolphins missed the playoffs. The Dolphins are in a state of flux. Who are they? What's their identity? What are they as a team? The Jets are a colossal failure year after year after year. So you're not scared of those 2 teams. You easily could finish second in your division next year. Could you slide into a wild card position? Maybe. Kayshon Boutte, I think, can play for the Patriots. Pop Douglas could be a decent slot receiver. They need better skill. They need to draft a wide receiver. And they have the 4th pick in the draft, so that could be Travis Hunter. That could be a number of guys that could be impact players. Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona. Third on the list, Jets, Jaguars, Saints. That's tough. The Saints, not a truck because they don't have any cap space. They don't have a quarterback. Their best wide receivers had like 4 concussions in the last 2 years. Chris Olave, I feel horrible for him. They have an aging defense that can still play, but they're all older guys. Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. So not thrilled about that. And like I said, they're $100 million over the cap right now. Brutal. Jags, Shad Khan, I don't think he's a great owner. I think he wants to be a big name owner, just like his son Tony wants to be this big wrestling owner. Yet he's AEW and he's not WWE, so he's never going to be top shit. But again, tough to tell a billionaire that. So if Aaron Rodgers was gone from the Jets and Woody Johnson maybe could get a job in cabinet with Trump, which he did the first time. He was an ambassador in England, I think. It could be. But I think all 3 jobs are not good, but it's in the NFL. You'll coach. You'll take the gigs. Wednesday's show, I'm going to predict the head coaches and where they're going to go. I'm going to write that down right now so that I don't forget. That's going to be on Wednesday's show. It's head coach carousel. That's fun for me. I like doing that kind of stuff. Predict each one, and we'll go back to it after the fact to see what I was right about, what I was wrong. The other question mark is the Dallas Cowboys. Mike McCarthy's contract is set to expire next week, January the 14th. If he does not have an extension by then, he can contact other teams. Earlier today, the Chicago Bears requested permission to interview Mike McCarthy for their head coaching position. So there's interest from other teams around the league for Mike McCarthy. Do the Cowboys want to bring him back? Cowboys have to decide what they want to do with Micah Parsons this summer, how much money he's going to get after another failed season. They got to get better players. Do they have the money to do it? Will they spend? Who the hell knows? Dallas could be another landing spot for a head coach if they choose not to give Mike McCarthy a new deal. I mentioned the Eagles could be, if the Eagles lose this coming weekend, I think they'll fire Nick Sirianni. But if they win, they will retain him. But that's how slim it is for him, I believe, anyway. They're not going to go through another year with that roster where they lose in the wildcard round. I don't think they'll accept that. The Philly Brass. They know they're better. They're a better team than that. But those are the coaches available right now. And you have names like Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Rex Ryan, Vrabel, Vance Joseph, Bobby Slowick with he's the offensive coordinator of the Texans. Those are all guys that are getting interviews, that are requested for interviews. If I pull up Adam Schefter here, I saw this. Mike McCarthy, another guy that Bears requested head coaching interviews with Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores and Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. So there's another 2 guys. Jets list so far: Vrabel, Ron Rivera, Rex Ryan, Flores, Josh McCown, Joe Brady, Matt Nagy, Arthur Smith, Brian Griese, Aaron Glenn, Vance Joseph, Bobby Slowick. They're talking to everybody. They will talk to everybody. The Raiders, Antonio Pierce said this today on whether he expects to remain the team's head coach. I haven't been told anything different. So it looks like the Raiders are going to stay status quo, which Also a little bit surprising. Also a little bit surprising to me because they just had really a disaster year and it seems like they need a fresh start, but maybe not. But that's where we stand when it comes to head coaches in the NFL. Other news. The Patriots won yesterday. They beat the Bills. If the Patriots would have lost, they would have had the top pick in the draft. But with the win, a little hey, how are ya from Gerard Mayo on the way out. With the win, the Patriots dropped from the first pick in the draft to the fourth pick in the draft. Tennessee loses, per usual. Tennessee, worst record, worst strength of schedule. Tennessee is now on the clock. They will be selecting first in the NFL draft. They need to go quarterback. Could be Cam Ward from the U. Could be Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. I don't think it's a great quarterback draft, personally. Jalen Milroe, the Alabama guy, who's more of a runner than a passer, just said he's turning pro. He's a project, certainly. I don't love him as just a thrower of the football. We'll see. Second on the clock, the Cleveland Browns, another team that was a disaster this year. Today we learned that Deshaun Watson, poor guy, had a setback in his Achilles surgery. He may not play next year. They don't know the extent of it yet, but he has 2 years left on his fully paid, fully guaranteed contract. So he might not play a snap next year, which is not worst case scenario for the Cleveland Browns. Bringing in a rookie quarterback on a small salary, probably the way to go. Nurture a guy, develop him, see what he can do with a decent roster to start, not a brutal way to come into the NFL, quite frankly. Third on the clock, the New York Giants, another team needing a quarterback, another team that needs some help. They are bringing back their GM and head coach, Joe Shane and Brian Daboll. So they're giving those two guys the keys to the cart to go and do this again, see what they can do. To be fair to them, they did not draft Daniel Jones. They did pay him, however. And as I mentioned, fourth on the clock, the Patriots. Below them, you have teams like Vegas, who need a quarterback like they do every year. And just some teams that are kind of in no man's land where they're not competitive, but they're sort of in the mix. They're sort of, if I go to the draft order here, just to pull it up and have everybody find the order here. We don't know everybody yet because there's still playoff teams, but the top 18. Tennessee, Cleveland, the Giants, Patriots, Jags at 5. Interesting. Vegas, the Jets, need a quarterback. Carolina at 8. They're on the come up. They could take a good player in this draft. Saints at 9. The Bears at 10, so we go down the list. But it should be an interesting draft because you have some teams that I think will be looking for wide receivers that could be going higher than maybe they should. One of the first mock drafts that came out, a lot of rumors that Tennessee really likes Cam Ward. 2, Shedeur Sanders going to Cleveland. The Giants trading up, taking Travis Hunter, but I don't really understand that one. But I don't think we'll see a whole lot of quarterbacks go in the first round. and less teams are reaching. Because I think there's two quarterbacks that are going to go in the first round. And after that, there's nobody that I think would get a first round grade from any of these experts on Milroe or whether it's Carson Beck. I don't think they're getting it for what the body of work that they've done in college. Interesting. Also, Tyreek Hill wants out of Miami, wants out with the Dolphins. Said after the game, it's been fun. Had a great time here. But yeah, I think I'm out. And then he put a picture on Instagram today. His new profile picture is Antonio Brown when he took his shirt off, took his gear off, leaving the Buccaneers. Except it's Tyreek Hill put his face on Antonio Brown's body. He didn't play in the second half, not because of injury per Mike McDaniel, just didn't want to go back in the game. So, looks like an ugly separation there. He's didn't have a great year, didn't have 1,000 yards receiving for the first time in a very long time. He does create a lot of controversy. The Dolphins are in a weird spot where I don't think they trust their quarterback. Their quarterback doesn't have a concussion but still can't get on the field to play. So they have a lot of question marks going into the offseason on what they're going to do moving forward. But that's the NFL. That's a lot happening. As I said, on Wednesday's show, we're going to do a coaching carousel where I'll predict where every coach, every opening, where they'll end up. And we'll see how many I'm right, see how many I'm wrong about. So that should be fun on Wednesday. But before we get to that, how about the World Juniors? Another fun tournament. A thrilling final, a very entertaining bronze medal game between Sweden and the Czech Republic. And through 30 minutes, Finland had control of the game. They really made it boring for the U.S. They clogged it up. They forechecked extremely hard. But the U.S. caught a bounce on a goal with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in the second period. And they scored 2 minutes later to make it 3-3 going into the third. They had the momentum, and they didn't look back from there. Third period, they outshot the Finns in third period and overtime 26-4. They controlled possession. And credit to Rimpinen, the Finnish goaltender, who was phenomenal all tournament long. He kept them in it. He played extremely well against the Swedes. He was by far their team MVP. He robbed Zeev Bayam in overtime. Awesome save. Ryan Leonard was 1-on-3, split them all, went in, got stopped on the backhand on a really nice save by Rimpinen. But in the end, it was Zeev Bayam on a perfect saucer stretch pass to Teddy Stiga. Stiga did not have a goal all tournament. Scores 5-hole, gets the golden goal for the Americans. Awesome moment for him. It sounds a lot like the story for Canada. And this was in 2018, I believe, where Tyler Steenbergen, their 13th forward, got the game winner. Hardly got any ice time, but got on late. Canada scored a winner in the last minute of a game. And Teddy Stiga didn't have a goal all tournament, but he's on the ice in overtime. He's got wheels, and he scores a huge goal. Trey Augustine has the most wins by a World Junior goaltender for the Americans in history. Only 2 losses ever for him at the World Juniors. Awesome. He's also already played at a World Hockey Championship at 19. He plays for the best NCAA team right now at Michigan State. So he had a fantastic tournament. He's had a fantastic junior career. And the Americans have gone back to back. The Americans, I had a big debate with a buddy of mine, really good friend, and I care for his opinion. I think he's very smarter than me on most things, minus sports. We had a big debate about if CIS, say UNB, could beat Boston College. And he's like, if it was a series, I think UNB could win. And I told him, yeah, maybe UNB could win a game because I wanted to make him feel better about his argument that I thought was, lackluster, to say the least. And you look at this team for the Americans. They only had 2 guys playing in the CHL. Torrance is one of them, plays for the Erie Otters, good player. But these kids playing college hockey are really good. And the Americans have a ton of guys that are going to be NHL players come March, April. Starts with Ryan Leonard, who won tournament MVP and was the captain. Some might say that he falls too easy. Okay, I'll give you that. Some might say that he plays the game too intensely. I won't buy that because I'll take somebody that will jump into the fire rather than somebody that you have to throw in every day of the week. Slick hands, ultra competitive, and he's got a man's body at 19. Ryan Leonard could have went pro, but he went back for another year. Get better, play another World Junior, win another gold medal, play some more hockey with your best bud, Gabe Perreault, and hopefully win a natty this year, something he hasn't done yet. Get to the Frozen Four, something they haven't accomplished down there yet. But I will make a bet with anybody. If you want this bet, come get it. He's playing with the Boston College Eagles. He'll play out the year. They're going to hope to win a national championship. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Washington Capitals are going to the playoffs. Game 1, Ryan Leonard is going to be in the lineup. I'll bet anybody $100 if you want that action. He will be in the lineup. Because Washington, that's an addition that you don't have to trade for. That's a deadline addition that you don't have to set anything. It's a prospect coming in that's ready to play right away. He's got the fire. He's got the compete. He's going to fit in with Ovechkin perfect. Just the way they go about their business. Ryan Leonard is going to be a pro hockey player in about 3 months. Have fun at BC. Pretend to go to a few more classes. He's going to be a Washington Capital in 3 months. Next guy, Cole Hudson. Ryan Leonard won tournament MVP. It easily could have been Cole Hudson. He probably would have got my vote. Cole Hudson's like his brother. He's a pretty damn good hockey player. And the benefit for Cole Hudson is he's going to be joining a team with actually some good defensemen. Unlike Lane, who has had to do a lot in his rookie year for the Montreal Canadiens. And he's played fantastic as a rookie. Cole Hudson's going to get to join Jacob Chikrin, who's got 12 goals already, and John Carlson. And guys that are just smart hockey players and learn from them and have success right away. Cole Hudson, I believe, will be in the lineup game 1 for the Washington Capitals in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's going to turn pro, in my humble opinion. I could be wrong. I don't think I will. This kid is so confident, but it's not an arrogance. He's so smooth with the puck going down the wing, finding guys, knowing when it's the right time to shoot, knowing when it's the right time to pass it off to a teammate. He is unselfishly, selfishly brilliant, if that makes any sense. He had an awesome tournament. He impressed me maybe more than anybody. He controlled the game when he was on the ice. He was awesome. He's going to be a pro in 3 months with the Washington Capitals. They're both drafted there. Leonard and Hudson. Third guy for me. And there could be more because I think Gabe Perreault is going to turn pro, probably. He's damn good too. James Higgins is going to be taken in the top 3 of the draft. He'll probably be playing pro next year. The other lock for me, and he's going to be playing in the playoffs because I think this team is going to be a playoff team, Zeev Byam, who's playing at the University of Denver. You look at his resume the last little while. 2024. Wins a gold medal in Sweden. So January 2024 wins a gold medal. April 2024, he wins the national championship at the University of Denver. January 2025, he wins another gold medal with Team Canada, with his head coach at the University of Denver, David Carl, for all 3 of those achievements. He nearly got the OT winner. He assisted on the OT winner. He can play in any situation. Cole Hudson is an offensive dynamo. Zeev Byam has some offensive ability. But to me, he's more of he's a thinker. He makes things happen. Seems to always be in the best position. 2024, he had 5 points. 2025, he had 6. For the old folks, plus 11 and plus 10 in the 2 tournaments. Just turned 19 in early December. He went back for another year, could have turned pro. Maybe he'll win another natty. He's playing for Minnesota. If they make the playoffs, you're going to think they're going to have Brock Faber and they're going to have this kid, and they're both under the age of 23. That's nice to have. That's a nice feather in your pocket. Those 2 guys for years to come, and Middleton under contract, who I like a lot, who's just a depth guy, but he gets it done. Zeev Byam, another guy. The Americans just have a lot of guys that are going to be NHL players. You can just look at this tournament and go, yeah, we don't know. Okay, yeah, a lot of them will flame out. These 3 guys won't. I'll put my money on it. These 3 guys are going to play pro hockey for years to come and do it pretty damn well. Because you can just see it with some guys. Gabe Perreault, I think, is a really good player and will likely be a good NHLer. Likely. His dad was a good NHLer. That helps. Ranger draft pick. He could turn pro, play for them at the end of the year. Another season at Boston College for him. He had 10 points in the tournament back-to-back years. That top line for the Americans with Higgins, Perreault, Leonard just couldn't be stopped. No team could really deal with them. Finland tried. They did their best. They did a good job. The Czechs, all in all, did a good job in the semifinal. But there's 3 guys that are just uber talented. They were head and shoulders a better line than any other line in the tournament. So the U.S. have won back-to-back. They will go for 3 in a row next year on home soil. in Minneapolis/St. Paul. They'll play at the XL Energy Center, where the Wild play, and also at the campus at the University of Minnesota. You could say they have a lot of pressure to three-peat, but also you can look at Canada, you can look at these other nations to show up. The Czech Republic have won medals at 3 straight tournaments. Something that Canada cannot say. Something that Sweden cannot say. Something that the Finns cannot say. They've been more consistent than Canada. They won the bronze in a 14-round gimmick, aka the shootout, in a wild game with Edward Chalet, the Seattle Kraken first-rounder, getting the tying goal in the shootout in the 13th round to extend it, then getting the winner on a bar-down backhand in the 14th round. All in all, a very entertaining tournament. It's great hockey. I love it every year. I think it's nice to have because the NHL can get stale. You might get a little tired of watching the same teams every night. It's a different feel. It's a different vibe. And I do think that the Four Nations will be fun. I do think the Four Nations provide something different where you're going to have international hockey and something to play for, which is what you see here, and just pride for your country, pride in the jersey that you put on. So I'm happy for that. But fun stuff. Great tournament. Jakob Stansel for the Czech Republic, great tournament, 7 goals, led the tournament. I mentioned the American guys who are great. Otto Stenberg, David Edstrom for the Swedes, really impressive. Michael Harabel, the goaltender at UMass for the Czech Republic, was great against Canada, was great, very good against the Americans, very good against Sweden to get his country the bronze medal. And both teams came to play for that bronze medal, which I appreciated. It was a fun game. All right. Only an hour and 18 minutes, but there's a lot in that hour and 18 minutes, I'll tell you. Flew by. I'm wiped here. That's how it's sitting there talking. It takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot out of you, I'd say. Anything else I missed? Bengals fired the defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo after 6 years. Thought that might have happened. I thought they might fire their head coach, but no such luck for Bengals Nation. Leafs won 2 in a row. Matthews returned, got an empty netter. Nyes, 4 goals in 2 games. Good on him. Good job by you. MVP in the NFL. I think Josh Allen will win the award. I'd be surprised if he didn't. Didn't have to play his last week because I think he's going to win it, but we will see there. But yeah, busy weekend. A lot happened. Wednesday show. Head coach carousel predictions in the NFL. We will recap the NHL the next couple nights. We got games. Vancouver's always interesting to watch. They're in La Belle Province playing Montreal tonight. Be curious to see what happens there. We got Leafs Flyers home and home, so that'll be the second matchup tomorrow. Edmonton is in Boston tomorrow night. Boston's been on a skid. Tampa's been on a skid. Ottawa Senators' final game of their road trip in Detroit, finishing up a 9-game road trip. Detroit's been hot as the race for the wild card heats up in the Eastern Conference. So we'll have lots to touch on there. I just saw a trade in baseball. We'll save that for the show on for the show on Wednesday. So we'll talk some baseball as well, with the Blue Jays rumored to be in the mix for Anthony Santander. Nothing done yet, but they haven't done anything all off season, so we'll see if they do. So lots to come on Wednesday show, and then no show Thursday night. We will have a show on Friday morning to preview the NFL wildcard weekend. So until Wednesday, enjoy it. Take care. I'm your host, Noah Warren, and this is the Live and Learn podcast.